Hey, what's up? I'm Norris and welcome back to another sew along. Today we'll be working on Wifey's new Simplicity Mimi G pattern 9714. And today we'll be working on view B, the pant. Now if you're new to sewing or just need a refresher course, you can click the link in the description box below. Now if you need further instructions from there, I would advise you to sign up to sewitacademy.com where you get the first 5 courses for free. Okay, let's get started. All right, once again, like I said, we'll be working on Mimi G style Simplicity pattern 9714, and we'll be working on view B, which is the long pant. Now, if you look at the back, you'll see all suggested fabrics up here, notions, and specifically with this pattern, you'll need a 7-inch zipper. I use something a little bit longer. It just makes it a little bit easier when navigating up on the machine. And also you'll need 3/4 of an inch elastic, and there's a guide for that. Once you figure out what's your finished garment measurements, it'll make it easier to get close to your size so you won't have too many modifications when it comes to fit. All right, now let's go through all the pattern pieces. You need pattern piece number 15, which is the fly, and you want to cut 1 out of your fabric. And I also cut 1 out of interfacing, even though it don't show it, I just want to have a little bit more stability when it comes to my flyer. Then you need pattern piece number 14, which is the fly facing. You want to cut 1 out of fabric and then 1 out of interfacing. Pattern piece number 17, right front waistband. You want to cut 2 out of fabric and it says 2 out of interfacing. But if you don't want your waistband to be too thick on the sides, you can just cut 1 out of interface instead of 2, but it's optional. Next is pattern piece number 18. This is your left front waistband. You want to cut 2 out of fabric and 2 out of interfacing. And just like the front right waistband, it's optional to cut 1 out of interfacing instead of 2. But again, like I said, it's optional. Pattern piece number 13. This is the front yoke and pocket. Pattern piece number 12. This is the pocket facing. You want to cut 2 out of lining. Pattern piece number 11 is the front. You want to cut 2 out of fabric. Pattern piece number 16, this is your back. You want to cut 2 out of fabric. Then we have pattern piece number 19. This is your back casing. You want to cut 1 on the fold, and the fold is right here. And then last but not least, this is your elastic guide for the back. You want to cut 1 out of elastic. Just hold elastic up to whatever your size is, and then you want to cut to the same length as this. Now, once you have all of your pattern pieces cut out of fabric, we can begin sewing. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to let you know you want to grab your front and back pieces and you want to reinforce across the top. And then for the front right, which is the one I have right here, you want to reinforce at the dot 1 inch above and also 1 inch below. And then you want to clip to your stitching right at that dot, okay? And then there's a guide for your top stitching. You want to go ahead and base right here just so you can have that guide in place. And once you do all of that, we can begin our very first step. So you want to grab your pocket lining, pattern piece number 12, match up your notches and begin pinning there. Okay, now that we have it pinned, you want to start on one end and stitch all the way down to the other end using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so do that, come back and we'll continue. Okay, so I'm back from the machine. I went ahead and I stitched my 5/8 of an inch, and then I also went ahead and kept my allowance towards the lining, and I did my understitching, which is basically stitching very close to the seam on the lining side. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim that down to about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so now I'm just going to go to my pressing table and turn that under. You want to give it a good press, and then you want to top stitch it 1/4 inch away from the fold all the way up here. Okay, so do that, come back and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, I went ahead and I top stitched 1/4 inch away from the fold here. And then on the other side, all right, then now we're going to take our facing and pocket and place it right on top. Now there should be a dot, a marker. That's where the end of the front should meet up with the pocket. Then you just want to align everything. Then there should be a double notch to match up with your lining down here, and we're going to pin. Okay, so now let's head to the machine and only working on our lining and our pocket. You want to take the rest of the front and move it out the way, and we're just going to stitch here all the way to here using our seam allowance, which is 5/8 of an inch. Do that, come back and we'll continue. Okay, now back from the machine, I went ahead and based the facing across the top, and then also the side and then the center. So the right side is the only side that has the top stitching right here, and also the reinforcement here with the clip into the large dot. Okay, so once you finish up your pocket, you want to do the other one the same exact way. Now, once you do all of that, you want to grab your two front pieces and align your pieces together and matching the large dot. And we're going to pin right at that dot. And then we're also going to pin right at that notch. So we're going to head to the machine and we're going to stitch starting at the large dot, and we're going to stop at the notch. Okay, so we're going to stitch in between the large dot and notch, and you want to make sure you back stitch really well at the beginning and also at the end to reinforce the stitch right here. Okay, so do that, come back and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. I went ahead and stitched right here in the center. And then next what we're going to do is we're going to move the left side out of the way, which is literally on the right here, but you can tell by where you have the top stitching. And we're going to grab our fly facing. So we have two options. You can turn under a 1/4 inch and then stitch that down along the side where the curve is, or you can just do a surgeon stitch. So for the purpose of the video, I'm just going to do a surgeon stitch because it's much faster for me. And with right sides facing, we're just going to turn and want to take your double notch and line it up. And we're just going to pin right here. And then now we're going to head to the machine and we're going to stitch starting at the top and all the way down until we get to that large dot. And then we're going to back stitch to reinforce the stitch. And then we're going to trim that down to a 1/4 inch. Okay, so go ahead and stitch this down till we get to the dot. Come back and we'll continue. Okay, still working on the right side. I went ahead and understitched on the facing. And then now let me go ahead and trim this down. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab our zipper. And we will be placing the zipper 1 inch from the top. So I'm going to go ahead and measure and then put a little dot right there. So now that we have our marking for our tab, our zipper tab supposed to be stopping right here. You want your zipper to be face down, and then on this side, the left side, you want to extend it over that facing and front seam by a 1/4 inch. And then now we're going to pin on the right side, which is right here. And then now we're just going to head to the machine and we're going to stitch starting here at the top, and we're going to go all the way down until we get to the end of the fly facing. Okay, and we're going to just edge stitch on the zipper tape on this side. Okay, so let's head to the machine and stitch this down. Okay, so now I have my needle in and we're just going to edge stitch on the right side. Okay, and don't forget to switch over to your zipper foot. So back to the beginning and also at the end. Okay, so we're back from the machine. I went ahead and edge stitched on this side of the zipper tape. And then now you just want to turn that fly facing to the inside like this, and you want to give it a good press. Once you give it a good press, I'm going to go ahead and pin this side down just to hold it in place for right now. Okay, now that we have that in place, and then next we're going to take that fold and we're going to place it over here onto our zipper. So I just want to make sure everything lines up before I pin. Now after you have it lined up, you can unzip. Hold that, and then I'm just going to pin that in place. So we're going to make sure that fold is like right there where the zipper teeth are without it being on top. Okay, so now that we have it pinned just like this, you want to go ahead and base that down. And then once you base it down, you want to grab your fly, and with wrong sides facing, you just want to fold it in half and give it a good press. And we can clean off the raw edges with your serger or a zigzag stitch or picking shears. And then after you do that, we're just going to place it right underneath 3/8 of an inch, and then we're just going to edge stitch in the same place where we based all the way up. So let's head to the machine and finish up. Okay, so I've already based the left side onto the zipper tape, and now I have my fly already pinned to that left side. So now I'm going ahead and put my needle in, and we're just going to stitch all the way up. Back stitch at the beginning and also at the end. Okay, we're back from the machine, and as you can see, we already have our fly attached to the left side of our pants. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zip this back up, and on the back side, I'm going to take that fly and I'm going to pin it out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and pin on the front side, but making sure that I'm catching the fly underneath. Okay, do one more. So this is what it should look like. This is the left side, this is the right side, and we have that fly pinned out the way momentarily. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that right side is perfectly aligned. Then I'm going to flip this back around. Okay, so now you just want to head to the machine, and we're just going to top stitch following that guide that we based earlier. Okay, so go ahead and just top stitch and follow your basting stitch all the way up. So do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine and went ahead and top stitch on our right side, and then we open it up. It should look just like this. Okay. One thing to note, on the other side, you can take your fly and your fly facing and then just tack them together right at the edge on the corner at the bottom down here, and that'll keep it from opening. And then also right here where you started the top stitching, you can tack down a little bit right here just to reinforce where that fly is. And now if you have a zipper that's long, you can go ahead and just cut that down. Okay, next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take your back, and with right sides facing, we're going to line the inseam and then also the out seam. Now, just to let you know, I went ahead and did a surgeon stitch on the inseam of both my front and my back, and then also the side seams too. So what you want to go ahead and do is you want to pin, start at your notch first. Okay, so now we're going to head to the machine. We're going to stitch starting at the top and go all the way down using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then once you do that, you want to do the same thing to your side seam. You want to pin and then stitch all the way down using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we have our outside seam and also inside seam on both pant leg done. And then now, I'm just going to turn it around. And the only thing you'll see the back opening right here up until the crotch. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn one of these inside out, and then I'm just going to take the one that's right side out and tuck it inside. Okay? Just like this. All right, now that we have it like this, I'm going to go ahead and pin both of these together. I'm going to start with our notches in the back. Want to make sure we align that center crotch here and pin at that seam. Okay, so now we're going to head to the machine and we're going to start where that notch is, where we stop that stitch, and we're going to go all the way up through the back and to the top using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, I went ahead and turned my pant legs both right side out, and I pressed that seam and turn to the back. You can see that it's all together. Okay, so right now I'm just going to put this to the side. I'm going to grab one of our waistbands. Now this right here is the left waistband, and what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it right sides facing, and we're going to stitch across the top. Okay, so now we're just going to head to the machine. We're going to stitch across the top using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, now that I'm back from the machine, you want to find, since this is the left, your notches should be on the right side. So I'm just going to raise that up a little bit, and I'm going to measure about 1.25 inches away from that back edge, and I'm going to put a little marking. Now that marking is for us to stop the understitching. I'm going to keep the seam allowance facing up. We're just going to lift this up. We're going to stop at that marking. Okay, so do that, come back, and we'll continue. I'm going to go ahead and flip this down. I want to trim some of this seam allowance out the way. All right, so now you want to do your right waistband the same exact way, but just know where we have the notches at on the left side, that's where you want to measure from, the 1.25 inches when you stop your understitching. Okay, so now I'm about to take my back waistband, and with right sides facing, I'm gonna put this in the middle. Okay, so now you want to just take both waistbands on the right side, turn that way, and then on the left side you want to turn that right side facing, and we're going to pin. There should be notches for you to join. Okay, so now just head to the machine. We're going to stitch both sides down using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so I'm back from the machine, and as you can see, I went ahead and attached my front bands, and then press my seams open. And also on the facing side of the waistband, the side that got understitched, I went ahead and pressed up the seam allowance. Okay, so the instructions tell you to press up 5/8 of an inch and then trim it down to 3/8. But for me, I'm just gonna press up 1/2 inch. And I'm just gonna keep it, okay, because I like the extra seam allowance in my waistband to give a little bit more stability. All right, so now I'm just gonna take this. Mind you, I got it in the exact same placement. This is the right and this is the left. So I'm gonna grab my pant, and then right sides facing, I'm gonna start pinning from the back. Now this is the back here. You have 2 notches in the back. You wanna start pinning there first. Make sure your side seams line up. And then there should be a notch towards the front. And then your band should extend 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so now we're going to head to the machine. We're going to start on one side. So just remember, both sides is supposed to extend 5/8 of an inch. So you want to start there, stitch all the way across the top until we get to the other side here using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, the waistband has been attached to the pant. And what we're gonna do next, we're just going to take the top part, the facing of the waistband, the part that we pressed. If it came up, make sure to fold it back down, and we're gonna fold this onto itself, okay, just like that. And the reason why I fold down 1/2 inch is because it gives me a good 1/8 of an inch past the seam allowance where we will be stitching in a ditch. So go ahead and fold that end down and pin. And you want to do the other side the same exact way. So basically you just fold it onto itself. Okay. So now let's head to the machine and we're just going to stitch this down using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and then do the other side the same exact way. Okay, now that I'm back from the machine, I'm going to trim some of this down. And then the other side too. Trim that corner a little bit. All right, now we're going to turn this right side facing and poke that corner out. Okay, just like that. Okay, just like that. We're going to turn that face again, and then I'm going to pin on the front side, catching the underneath. Okay. Okay, now that we have it all pinned, I'm personally going to keep the pins in place for right now. Now you can go and stitch in the ditch using a basting stitch, okay? Now a basting stitch is just to keep it in place, but I'm just keeping my pins in place instead of doing that. And also, if you are gonna base it in place, you want to stop an inch before you get to the side seam here, and then also on this side too. So what I'm gonna focus on first, let me turn it around. I'm going to start at that side seam and then stitch in the ditch all the way across the back until I get to the other side seam. Okay, so you want to stitch in the ditch, catching that fold underneath, and then once you do that, come back and we'll continue. Okay, so I'm back from the machine. As you can see, I went ahead and finished stitching in the ditch across the back, so the back is secure. And then I also went ahead and I stitched some of the front band. So I stitched in the ditch about 4 inches from the edge, and then I stopped about an inch away from the side seam. Now I wanted to do at least some of this right here because I haven't done my hook and eye in the front, and I want to leave at least about 4 inches so I can turn under and do that. Okay, so the inch that I left open, we're going to go ahead and grab your elastic, and you want to pin it. Just use a safety pin, and we're just going to move this all the way across the back to the other 1 inch opening on the other side. Now before it pulls all the way through, you just want to secure it with a pin. Just like this. So now that won't move and I can continue pushing it through. Okay, so now that I have it all the way through, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna leave a little bit sticking out past that seam. So you can see it right here. So my elastic is all the way through and it sticks out about 1/2 inch past that side seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it on that side seam. All right, so I can feel it is right there on that side seam, and I'm just going to pin it in place. Okay, so now you can head to the machine and just stitch right there in that side seam ditch. You can do it either way on the front or in the back. Preferably doing it from the front so you can actually see that front side seam, and then do the other side, and then that elastic, it will be secure. All right, I won't be securing mine yet because wifey has to try this on. Maybe she might want a little bit more, but once you secure that, you can go ahead at the machine and you can finish stitching that 1 inch that we left open on the side seam here and then also here. So do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so you're back from the machine now, and the only thing we have to do is to close out the front. But before we close out the front, we have to do the hook and eye. You want to just place it on both sides and follow the instructions that's in your hook and eye packet. And then once you put that in, you can finish up stitching in the ditch, and that'll close out that 4 or 5 inches you left in the front. If you don't want to do a hook and eye, you can close it out and then do a buttonhole on this side, and then you can put your button on the left side. Okay, just to give you a few different options. And then last but not least, you want to go ahead and finish your hem, and you're all done. All right, congratulations. Now, I hope you enjoyed this course. Now, remember to tag us and also follow at Norris Danta Ford and at Mimi G Style so we can see your amazing makes. See you in the next one.